Little Ellen had an exhilarating few weeks, as her long-awaited wish was about to come true. The orphanage was abuzz with excitement as a couple was visiting to adopt 2 kids. Despite being sent to the backyard to calm down by her teacher, Ellen couldn't help but ask the orphanage staff if she would be adopted. The director and teachers were busy preparing for the couple's visit, determined not to make any mistakes in front of influential parents. The Atkins were an older couple, with Tyra being 45 and Josh being over 50. They never had children during their 20-year marriage, as they focused on their careers first. After realizing they couldn't conceive naturally, they tried different treatments before deciding to adopt a child. Being millionaires through their construction business, they could afford it. During their first visit to the orphanage, they were immediately drawn to a 6-year-old girl with brown hair and dark chocolate eyes, who was laughing next to a tall boy that she followed everywhere. Tyra admired the girl's innocence and beauty. "She looks so much like you with your eyes and hair color," said Tyra to Josh. He responded with a smile, saying that her laughter was as contagious as hers and suggested they get to know the baby better. While preparing the necessary paperwork, the family visited the orphanage multiple times to bond with the little girl they planned to adopt. On their second visit, Josh grew attached to a boy whom the girl was always with. Josh was delighted to have a son who could carry on the family business and provide support. The boy's name was Alex, and the orphanage staff shared the backstory of their friendship. 6 years ago, a baby girl was left at an orphanage door during a spring rainstorm. The director named her Ellen, meaning shining light. Despite growing up without parental love, Ellen was kind and had impressive mental abilities by age 5. In the same year, a 9-year-old boy named Alex, who had a dysfunctional family, became friends with Ellen at the orphanage. Despite being withdrawn and unsociable, Alex defended Ellen and cared for her while she brightened his life with her kindness. The Atkins liked the children very much. "So you're not afraid to take us to your place? People take kids like us for a while and then return them back, saying they didn't fit in," Ellen said. Alex's eyes were also filled with apprehension as he waited for Tyra's response. Tyra's face softened and she reassured them. "No, my dears, you're not some kind of toys that can be returned. You're living beings and we would never do that to you. If you want us to be your parents, we will take you to our home. So, would you like that?" Ellen nodded eagerly without hesitation, and Alex's smile finally broke through his nervousness, warming Tyra's heart. "I promise Josh and I will do everything we can to make you the happiest children," Tyra whispered, tears of joy filling her eyes. Eventually, the day arrived when Ellen's adoptive parents came to take her home, and she eagerly awaited their arrival in the garden, wearing her best dress and gathering her few possessions. "Ellen, are you ready? It's time to say goodbye to everyone. They're already here." Alex's voice came from behind. The girl jumped up and turned around. "Yes, of course, brother. I'm absolutely ready. Absolutely. Everything is collected. I'm running already." Alex stopped her, ruffled her soft hair, and took her hand with a smile. "Take a deep breath and calm down. Don't run like crazy. Dad and Mom won't leave without us." The first time she heard the words Dad and Mom from her brother's lips, Ellen froze in place and stared at him with wide eyes. "Wow, we have to slowly get used to calling them that. After all, they are our parents now. Dad, Mom," Ellen muttered quietly under her breath, tasting these words. Warmth spread throughout her body, warming the girl's heart. Ellen struggled to keep up with her older brother's long strides as they walked out onto the porch. However, she suddenly stopped in shock when she saw the couple waiting for them. She quickly turned and ran back inside, leaving the Atkins confused and worried. They wondered if she didn't want to be their daughter, or if she was afraid to leave the orphanage where she had spent her entire life. Ellen returned after a while, holding something in her hands. She was blushing from running and excitement as she approached her new parents and presented a handmade postcard. The card had a drawing of 2 adults, a man and a woman, and 2 children, a boy and a girl, all holding hands and smiling. The bottom of the card had a message: "My family, Mom and Dad, I love you." Tyra was overwhelmed with emotions upon seeing the gift, and Josh spoke softly with a hoarse voice, saying, "We love you too. We're now a family." Ellen's departure from the orphanage was a touching event, with the staff expressing their love for her, shedding tears and wishing her happiness. Ellen hugged each of them and promised to visit when she grows up. Alex, the 10-year-old, was more reserved and quietly said goodbye, waiting for Ellen by the car with sparkling eyes and a slight blush. They all traveled to the Atkins home in a large truck, which took them a long time. Ellen was curious about everything she saw from the window since she hadn't left the orphanage much. Tyra happily answered her questions while Josh drove. Alex, who had gained the nickname Bookworm for reading a lot during his year at the orphanage, occasionally added comments and answered Ellen's questions. Exhausted girl rested her head on her brother's shoulder and let out a soft sniffle after a couple of hours. Meanwhile, her brother looked outside the window while gently stroking her head with one hand. Tyra watched this heartwarming scene and reflected. This is what it feels like to be a mother. As they passed through the grand wrought iron gates, Alex exclaimed in amazement, "Is this where we live?" "Like it?" Josh asked with a smile. "Your mother and I spent several years building it in order to live with you as one big family." "It's beautiful," Ellen sighed enthusiastically, looking at the huge mansion. After giving her son and daughter a loving kiss, Tyra led them into the house where they were introduced to the household staff and their nanny, Mrs. Jackson, who would be taking care of them while their parents were at work. The parents had prepared comfortable and inviting rooms for the children, complete with a variety of toys which they enjoyed playing with before settling down to do their homework. The lively and cheerful Ellen quickly won over everyone she met, using her persuasive skills to convince people to join her in various adventures. Whenever something out of the ordinary happened in the house, it was almost always due to her involvement. Alex, a serious and reserved boy, found solace in the vast library that occupied the entire attic of the house. He spent most of his time there, away from school and family. The household staff admired his intelligence and good manners, while his father, noticing his seclusion, enrolled him in sports to promote all-round development. Alex, who had not experienced paternal love and care before, adapted well to this new life and became attached to his stepfather Josh as if he were his own. The Atkins were delighted that their children had accepted them and had easily adjusted to this new life. Their lives were filled with joy and contentment, which they had never experienced before. Every day they felt grateful for having Ellen and Alex with them. 3 months post-adoption, the Atkins had a dinner to celebrate a new contract. While getting ready, Tyra couldn't find her diamond necklace, which was a gift from her husband for their 20th anniversary. She checked her dressing room, but it wasn't there. She remembered that Ellen had shown interest in her dressing room earlier. Despite her efforts to push away negative thoughts, doubts infiltrated the woman's mind and settled in, slowly gnawing away at her soul. Was it possible for the sweet child she had grown so fond of to do something wrong? Tyra had a sleepless night filled with unsettling dreams and could only doze off in the morning. She was awoken by a knock on the door and in a drowsy voice allowed Ellen to enter. The girl entered with excitement and immediately started to talk loudly. "Mommy!" exclaimed Ellen. "Happy holiday to you!" Tyra, still half asleep, was confused. "Holiday? Sweetie, what holiday?" "Happy Mother's Day," replied Ellen excitedly. "Mrs. Jackson told me about it, and I'm so happy to be able to celebrate it with you." She then presented Tyra with a small homemade box as a gift. Tyra opened the box and was shocked to see a crown-like creation with her missing necklace. She felt a mix of emotions including great relief, shame for doubting Ellen, and overwhelming affection for the innocent little girl who smiled back at her. "I saw the beautiful glitter in your room and thought that it was as beautiful as you," said Ellen. "So I decided to make a crown for you. Do you like it?" Tyra, feeling delighted, hugged Ellen tightly and whispered, "Yes, baby, I love it very much." The Atkins family enjoyed a peaceful and loving life, but as often happens, the perfect period eventually came to an end. After 10 years of blissful family life with the children, Tyra fell gravely ill, and the disease progressed rapidly. Initially, the children were unaware of the severity of their mother's illness and believed that with the right treatment, she would recover. They accepted the daily visits of the doctors without much concern. Despite her illness, their mother remained in good spirits, often engaging in lengthy conversations with her son in the evenings, while her daughter sat nearby reading her favorite books and occasionally joining in on the conversation. "How's school going, son? Is it challenging?" "Well, I doubt a genius like Lee would have any trouble," Mom said with a smile. "Aw, come on, Mom," Alex laughed in response. "Your father is very proud of you and brags about you to all his friends," said Tyra. "He's even preparing a place for you in this company and hopes that you will inherit his business." Ellen put down her book and replied, "I don't know about being a genius, but one thing I know for sure." Ellen jokingly complained to her mother about the attention her older brother was getting from high school girls. She showed her mother the gifts she had received from his fans, who believed that the way to get closer to him was through his little sister. Alex laughed loudly and tousled his sister's silky hair. "You must be enjoying all the attention, huh?" he chuckled. Alex broke the silence by looking at his mother's face, which looked pale and slightly tired, and asked a serious question. "What did the doctor say about your headaches?" Tyra paused for a moment before speaking slowly. "Son, I may need to go to the hospital soon, but don't worry, everything will be fine. Just focus on your studies and take care of your sister." She then whispered, "You know how indulgent your father is with her, letting her do whatever she wants." Ellen mumbled in a drowsy voice, "I heard everything. Don't worry about me, I'm a grown-up girl now." "Absolutely, you're the best and most beautiful, but it's time to go to sleep now. Mom needs more rest," Alex replied. Alex felt uneasy after talking to his mother about her illness. He couldn't shake off the feeling that it was not a typical sickness. Despite saying goodnight to his mom and sister, he couldn't sleep for a long time, pondering about it. As days went by, Tyra's health deteriorated, and doctors informed the family that there was no cure for her inoperable brain tumor. After several medical procedures, they decided to go back home and spend Tyra's remaining time with the family. Upon Mom's return home, Ellen embraced her and exclaimed, "Mommy, I'm so happy you're back. You're feeling better now, right?" Tyra, who looked pale and frail from her treatment and the knowledge of her diagnosis, managed to give her daughter a weak smile and said, "Yes, my dear, I'm feeling much better. That's why the doctors allowed me to come back home, to be with you." Alex stood a few feet away looking at his mother with tears in his eyes. He had to try hard not to cry, and his mother looked at him with a pleading expression, shaking her head gently. Ellen, who was in her mother's arms, was unaware of the silent exchange between Alex and their mother. Josh made relentless efforts to find a way to either cure his wife or extend her life, but despite approaching various medical organizations, fate had its way, and Tyra passed away a few months later. She departed peacefully and with grace, leaving behind a final request for her husband to take care of their children after her passing, and for Alex to always support and look after his little sister. Tyra told her children to always remember the importance of family, no matter what happens. She reminded them that they may not be related by blood, but their bond as family is more valuable than shared genetics. Josh was crying and begging at the side of the bed. "Please, please, my love, don't leave me, don't go." "I'm not afraid to die," Tyra told her family. "I've experienced the feeling of love and being loved, and the joy of being a mother." She asked her family to take her hand and stay with her until the end. "Don't go, Mom, please," Alex cried out, his voice filled with desperation. But as soon as they clasped hands, his mother took her final breath, closed her eyes, and passed away to another world. Alex and Ellen experienced one of the most significant human losses, the passing of their mother. Ellen, who was raised as an orphan, encountered death for the first time. She experienced a deep ache in her heart and a sensation that an essential part of herself had shattered, leaving an emptiness that could not be filled by anything. Ellen gazed at her brother with her large brown eyes and asked, "Do you think Mom is happy where she is?" Alex responded tenderly, "I hope she is. At least she's no longer suffering from her illness. I know that she's watching over us and always thinking of us. Therefore, we should strive to be good people." Alex lovingly touched his sister's nose, and she nestled closer to him, embracing him tightly while burying her face in his chest and weeping silently onto his shirt. Josh's business started to deteriorate, with significant deals falling through one after the other. This led to a considerable drop in the family's income. To make matters worse, Josh was completely shattered by his wife's illness and subsequent death. He increasingly turned to strong drinks to cope with his pain. Eventually, his competitors took over his business, forcing Josh and his children to relinquish their luxurious mansion. As a result, the family had to move into a small two-room apartment. The children, having already experienced the loss of their mother, took the transition in stride. Ellen enrolled in a public school, while Alex made the decision to abandon his studies and find work. Josh slowly withered away before their very eyes, unable to cope with the loss of his cherished wife and the collapse of his life's work. Frequently, when Ellen came home, she witnessed her father in a state of mental turmoil. However, she never revealed to her brother how scared and sorrowful she was to see their father in such a state. On one occasion, upon returning home, Ellen was surprised to find her father clean and sober, preparing dinner on the stove. She stood frozen in amazement at the kitchen door as she watched her father. "Dad, is that really you?" she asked in disbelief. "Sweetheart, wash your hands and take a seat at the table. We're about to eat," Josh responded warmly. Feeling bewildered, Ellen followed her father's instructions. As Josh placed a plate of vegetable stew in front of her, he coughed in embarrassment and muttered, "I wanted to make you some vegetable stew, but it seems like something went wrong." Ellen swallowed the peculiar tasting stew and replied, "It's a bit unusual, but it's actually quite tasty. I'm so grateful you made this for me. I've made a decision. Starting today, I'll cook for my precious son and daughter. I'm finished with all of this. I need to get myself together and begin a new life. Not just for myself, but for you both as well. To be honest, I've been seeing your mother in my dreams lately. She's been reproaching me for leaving you in such a desperate situation." Ellen, in tears, threw herself into the arms of her father. "Dad, I'm so glad you're back." Josh gradually regained his focus. Meanwhile, Alex was engaged in the reconstruction of the family's construction enterprise, which required a significant portion of his time as he had to travel frequently to other cities for business purposes. Ellen remained at home to look after her father and took excellent care of him. The medical professionals had warned that his prior alcohol consumption made him susceptible to heart attacks. During one of Alex's week-long business trips, Josh discovered from Ellen's classmates that she had the opportunity to go on a 2-day excursion with her class to a history museum in a large city. However, Ellen declined the offer due to her job and the belief that she needed to look after Josh. "No, Dad, I don't want to go. I'd rather stay with you until Alex gets back. Besides, that trip is going to be dull," Ellen told Josh when he suggested that she should join her classmates. "I can't leave you alone for 2 days, Dad. It's out of the question," Ellen insisted. "Sweetheart, I'll feel worse if you miss out on this opportunity. Do you have to take care of an old man at your age? You're still young. Go and have fun. Please, do it for me," Josh pleaded with Ellen. As Ellen listened to Josh's words and saw the desperation and pleading in his eyes, she finally relented for the first time. She gave him a gentle kiss on the forehead and made a promise to go. She cooked enough food for 2 days and arranged for a neighbor to check on her father from time to time. Ellen left her phone number as a precaution and departed for the trip, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited them. The family had been the victim of fate's cruel tricks on numerous occasions, and this instance was no different. If only Josh had not convinced Ellen to go on his ill-fated journey. If only Alex had purchased the plane tickets a few days earlier. If only Ellen had opted to take the morning bus back to her town, maybe none of this would have occurred. Alex returned home with a heavy heart, as he had a feeling that something was not right. Overwhelmed by a sense of impending panic, he quickly got out of the taxi and ran up the steps to the house. Upon reaching the door, he began banging on it in a desperate attempt to gain entry. Eventually, a neighbor emerged and looked at him with a sorrowful expression. Upon hearing the news of his father's passing, he became deaf to everything else except for a ringing in his ears. He was unable to articulate a response and simply stared at the neighbor in a state of shock. On the night that Ellen departed for her field trip, Josh suffered a heart attack. Ellen rushed back home, but tragically, it was the last time anyone ever heard from her. She seemed to have vanished without a trace. Alex was consumed by despair, and his heart shattered into 1,000 tiny fragments that pained him from within. He held himself responsible for everything that had happened, blaming himself for leaving his father and sister alone in such a vulnerable state. With his father and sister both gone, Alex found himself utterly alone and unsure of what to do next. Despite making numerous unsuccessful attempts to locate Ellen, he eventually resigned himself to waiting at home in the hope that she would eventually return. For 2 long months, Alex remained holed up in the house, refusing to go anywhere in case Ellen turned up. He clung to the hope that she would one day walk through the door and bring an end to the nightmare that had become his life. However, despite his unwavering faith, Ellen never showed up, leaving Alex to grapple with the crushing weight of his grief and loss. Despite the unbearable pain of losing his father and sister, Alex knew he had to find a way to move forward with his life. He threw himself into growing the family business that his late parents had left him, and with hard work and dedication, it began to gain momentum. As the business grew, Alex never forgot about his sister and the mystery of her disappearance. Determined to uncover any information he could about her whereabouts, he spared no expense in hiring the best detectives to investigate the case. Years passed with no leads, but Alex refused to give up hope. He poured all his energy and resources into the search, never losing sight of his goal of bringing his sister back home. One day, Alex's phone rang, and on the other end was a detective with promising news. "Mr. Hunter, I've located a girl named Tyra," the detective informed Alex. "Tyra, that's my mother's name. My sister's name is Ellen," Alex replied, feeling frustrated as detectives often provided him with wrong leads. "I believe we need to meet, sir," the detective suggested. After a few days, Alex found himself waiting in the hotel lobby for the detective, who was running late. He began to feel anxious and thought of leaving when the detective finally arrived. He was not alone. Accompanying him were an older couple. "Mr. Hunter, how you doing, sir? This is Mr. and Mrs. Cooper," the detective said. During the meeting, the detective informed Alex that the Cooper family had encountered a girl named Tyra several years ago. It turned out that Tyra attended the same college as their daughter Lisa, and they had become close friends. According to Lisa, Tyra confided in her that she was suffering from amnesia and had no recollection of her past, except for the name Tyra, which she assumed was her own. Tyra went through various struggles to get out of the hospital and eventually found a job and a place to live. She decided to study neuroscience to understand what had happened to her. Lisa, her friend from college, often shared stories about her loving family. One day, Tyra jokingly asked if Lisa's parents could adopt her. She didn't need any financial support, she just longed for the feeling of having parents, something she had always wanted. Lisa wrote a post on Facebook to help Tyra find her family, and it went viral. The detective came across the post and found it suspicious. He showed Alex pictures of Tyra, and Alex was initially overwhelmed with emotion and put the pictures down. After picking them up again, he wept as he went through each photo. The Cooper family and the detective smiled in silence. It turned out that after the accident, Ellen had lost her memory and didn't remember her own identity. The only name she could recall was her mother's name, Tyra. The detective informed Alex that they could find Ellen thanks to Lisa's post. Alex called Lisa to express his gratitude, and Lisa offered to prepare a surprise birthday gift for Ellen. On Ellen's 25th birthday, Lisa extended an invitation to her to come over to her house. "Tyra, I would love for you to meet my family. How about we have dinner at our place?" Lisa asked Ellen. Ellen was thrilled and accepted the offer, excited at the prospect of being close to a family. When she arrived at Lisa's house, the dinner table was set and Lisa introduced her family to Ellen. "Mom, Dad, this is Tyra," Lisa said as she introduced Ellen to the Cooper family. "Nice to meet you, Tyra. Lisa's told us so much about you." Mrs. Cooper warmly greeted Ellen. As Lisa glanced at Alex, she noticed that he was struggling to contain his emotions. Tears had already formed in his eyes. Ellen looked at Alex and then back at Lisa, wondering who he was. "Alex, you already know who this is?" Lisa said, pointing at Ellen. Ellen looked even more confused. She had no idea who Alex was. "Tyra, this is your brother Alex. He's been searching for you for the past 7 years. And by the way, your real name is Ellen," Lisa revealed. Alex was already in tears when he said, "Hi, Ellen." When Ellen saw the pictures that Alex had shown her and heard the full story of her past, she was overwhelmed with emotion and began to cry tears of both sadness and happiness. Finally knowing the truth about her identity after all those years was a lot to take in. Alex expressed his deep gratitude to Lisa and her family for helping to find his long-lost sister. They had been reunited, and it was all thanks to Lisa's determination and kindness. After the birthday celebration, Alex drove Ellen to their childhood home, hoping that the familiar surroundings might help jog her memory. As they walked through the door, Ellen gasped at the sight of the old family photos on the walls and the familiar furniture in the living room. Memories started flooding back, and soon she was laughing and crying at the same time as she remembered all the good times they had shared as a family. The Cooper family had become Ellen's family too, and they all agreed that they were meant to find each other. As they took a family photo together, Ellen looked at her brother and said, "Thank you for never giving up on me." Alex smiled and replied, "Well, you didn't want to let me go since the orphanage. Thank you for being my sister."